So I think the fundamental concept of selling a product would be that a product has a certain value, right? And I'm not going to give it out for free unless you pay me the value first. So it is always thought of as a product that you are going to give against certain money, right? And education per se is valuable, right? It's a valuable and tangible asset that you're providing. So it's always been thought from that perspective. It's not been thought from a perspective of social media, right? Like social media like Instagram, Twitter, etc., where you contribute content, where you're on a digital platform, have access to friends, but you're not charging a subscription fee there, right? So it's all free, right? So then there is network effect that gets generated. But education is not thought from that perspective, right? Where offering free education can potentially lead to monetization value.
Hey, welcome to Will Talks Season 2. We have today with us Jairaj Bhattacharya. And I'm going to hit straight to the biggest question that has been lurking in my mind. And that is, how did you get from 5 lakh users on your platform to 4 crore users in a period of 2 years? Just how did you do that?
Yeah. Hi, Will. Hi, everyone. Good question to start. So we were 5 lakh users because we were at roughly 1,200 schools in about 14 states across India, out of which 850 of them were government schools and the remaining were affordable budget private schools. So we were essentially going school by school, right? And to get to 500,000 users, which it took us 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Because we had to expand school by school. Now, what happened was pandemic happened. Right? COVID-19, all schools got shut, which gave us an opportunity to rethink our strategy, right? We had the tech, we were providing learning to the masses, but we were going school by school. So then we went back to the drawing board and said, how do we reach the parents' phone, right? The parents' phone is where children are today. Once you're at home, locked down with your parents, right?
Yeah.
And that's when we all decided WhatsApp is internet for Bharat, right? We have to be on WhatsApp. We don't need a device. We don't need any kind of an app or website or fancy apps. We just need to build intelligence on WhatsApp, and it should be just a number that you can say hi on, and a bot responds back and say, what do you want to learn today? And it responds, and this has to happen in vernacular, right? It has to happen in every possible language. And we had the tech, the last 6 years of tech that we had developed supported that. So we started with a simple experiment. We launched a bot which would give weekly assessments to every child. And this was started in Himachal because the Himachal government was most desperate at that point of time to do something to get to 80% of their user base who had smartphones and mobile devices, right? So we launched it in June of 2021, 2020. Sorry. So yeah, 2020 was when we launched it. So the first week it crashed. WhatsApp crashed, right? The number, it went viral because in 2 days we reached 500,000 users. All imagine, right? What took us like almost 5 years, within 2 days we reached those numbers because people started sharing the WhatsApp number and it went viral, right? And then what happened was we were reaching limits of WhatsApp's business API, right? WhatsApp was crashing because WhatsApp's limit is 15,000 requests per minute. And then the state was, you need to figure out a way, right? You're not even there. We have 800,000 users in just Himachal alone. You find a solution. We'll give you 2 more attempts to do that. And that was the start for us to build this whole infrastructure called SwiftChat. Today we are at 4 crore users. We build messaging technology to get children to learn, right? The last mile connect. So we have a children-focused, mass market-focused platform where we are using messaging and simple messaging which works on 2G, 3G networks in multiple languages, and we are creating bots, chatbots on the platform.
So, whatever you said in the past 2 minutes,
Yeah.
right? I see at least 4 different unique strategies or 4 different unique routes that you have chosen to take, right? That others haven't taken. I'll tell you what I mean. What I mean is, first thing you said is, it's got to be vernacular. Wow. Like, I thought the language of technology was English. The first thing that you said is it's got to be vernacular. And the minute you said that it's got to be vernacular, suddenly this whole part of India that's away from English as a language suddenly gets included. The second thing that I heard you say that I hardly ever hear tech entrepreneurs say, right, is what is the app that people are using? Can I use and work with that app? Because every time, as somebody who runs a school myself, every time a tech company comes to us, the first thing they're trying to tell us is your legacy systems are bad. आप जो चला रहे हो ना वो अच्छा नहीं है. मेरा system use करो. And the minute we say that we need to move to your system, we have to take all or nothing. And what I'm seeing that you are doing is building on existing. Tell me more about these things. Vernacular, building on existing.
So Conway Genius, right, started with this vision and mission that we first need to focus on getting the bottom 200 million students of India and democratize education for all, right? How do we solve this problem? The problem statement that we were attacking is that how do we give quality education for everyone, not just the ones who can afford a Baiju or Vedantu, right? So it's for all. It could potentially be a simple access to a smartphone device and you should be able to learn, right? And that's democratization of education, right? Equity, right? And how do we solve for that? That was how we approached the problem. And then create a standard and show it in India and show it to the world, like how UPI has done. UPI is the largest fintech infrastructure coming from India, right? Our digital infrastructure is showing the pathway to the world, right? So is many other pilots happening, like ONDC, for example. Why can't that happen in education, right? India can show the pathway to the world, and if we can do that for 200 million users, children in India, we can do that for 1 billion users in the world, right? So there is value in building a platform which can democratize. So that was the starting point, and to do that, we have to solve for 3 or 4 constraints. One, vernacular, as you pointed out, right? Build technology in the language which they are already using, right? Like, because when you learn from someone, when you talk to a teacher and learn, you're talking to the teacher in a medium of instruction which you already know, and you're learning. What you're learning is the concept, right? And so for that, language should not be a barrier. Second is infrastructure, right? Internet, right? Basic internet or being offline, it has to have a consistent experience, whatever device you're on, whether you're on a smartphone device or a computer or a laptop or a television, anything. It should give the same consistent experience. That's what technology is supposed to do, right? So barrier of infrastructure was the second problem we had to solve for solving for the mass market, right? And once that is done, third is distribution, right? How do you get scale, right? For that, we have to work with the biggest scale people, right? The governments, right? We have to work with them to get scale. So that's where we were approaching the problem to tackle this issue, right? And then that's how WhatsApp came in, right? Like, WhatsApp came in because everyone's on WhatsApp. We need to figure out a way to be on it.
So what I'm actually noticing here, right, is what you're laying down is like a playbook for companies or tech companies who want to play in the space of education, right? It's a playbook for them. And what I'm seeing is your focus seems to be so much on the student and what is the student doing and what is the student most comfortable with. You don't want to add any more complexity than there already is in the system, thus making it more usable. And the fact that you've got 4 crore users itself shows that you've cracked something in that user adoptability / acceptability sort of space. So I think edtech companies that are listening to this conversation, although you're not an edtech company, you're a technology company working in the education space, I think this is a great playbook for them to be actually thinking through that. And what's exciting for me is when you say you want to democratize education, what do you mean by democratizing education? And I ask you this question from the perspective of every time we've tried to take technology to students and children and learning, people tend to say technology in education will make the rich richer and the poor poorer and increase the divide. Because इनके पास devices हैं, so they can get better and they can get better access and hence they can learn better. And those who don't have devices just completely get thrown off the bus, right? But what you're actually saying is you've cracked a model that allows you to democratize education. First of all, what do you mean by democratizing education? Second of all, why education?
Right. Very good questions, right? First, right, let's look at the second problem. Why education, right? We are an impact company, as Convegenius has a very mission-oriented approach. So we wanted to kind of create some solution which would influence the next generation, right? The next generation of the demographic dividend of the largest population of the world, which is India, right? The Gen Alpha and the Gen Zs. And how best to do it is through education, right? Disrupting education will solve the nation's problem because our next generation is educated. And you are getting access to 330 million children who are users, right? And your youth, they are the population is going to go and change your world when we become a $10 trillion economy. So that's why it's education, right? We have the power of technology. We have so many engineers. We just need to make them curious and build tech stacks, apps on top of it, right? And it has a network effect. So that's why education, right? So when we target the student, the child in the family, right? You're looking at the whole household. It's not just the child, because the child is taking the smartphone device of the parent, right? So you're indirectly influencing the whole family, the mother and the father, and also the teacher connected to the child, right? It's a triangle. The triangle, in the triangle, the child is second beneficiary, right? So when you target the child, you're actually influencing the whole community. You're changing communities. You're reviving communities. We are in 140 schools in the border in Leh and Kargil, right? Those areas. A lot of schools which got shut down have been revived just because they're now public infrastructure, right? With personalized adaptive learning platform there, right? So education has the power to change communities and disrupt at scale, right?
Wow. And what do you mean by democratizing that, right? You told me why education.
Yes.
Do you have any interesting, heartwarming stories from your own school or college, or it would be nice to know how did you actually get out of the formal education system? What have you done? What did you study? Any teacher you fondly remember?
So everyone goes through the formal education system. I also went through, born and brought up in Hyderabad, went through a affordable private school education system in Hyderabad, and then got fortunate to crack the general engineering exams like IITs, etc., and got into computer science. So it's been a merit journey overall. And however, the reason, as I said, education today has a big funnel. It's like a funnel you'll have to pass through, and the top 0.1% go through the funnel and get all the opportunities, right? For India to unravel and untap the real potential, right? We have to essentially educate every child, not just the private school child who has already the ability to scale and excel, but every child, right? Take them, say, the 10% shift up. So when I say democratize, I look at platforms which democratize, right? Which is available for all. So you're inclusive, right? So Convegenius believes in inclusivity, right? Open it up. Ubuntu is inclusive. It's democratized. You can just download Ubuntu and install an OS. You don't have a paywall, right? So from our platform's perspective, we don't really charge the user. It's like Google search. You can go and search, right? There will be monetization models built on a platform which democratizes. Like Google search, democratized search, right? You can just search for knowledge, right? And when people search for knowledge, there are monetization models that come out. So we believe that when education can also be democratized, you have the user base, right? If you have 200 million users learning, even if it is free, you will have monetization models emerging out of it. Right? So no one's thinking from that perspective. They're not thinking from the perspective that if you give free education, you'll open up a platform approach. And when you have when you're opening up the platform and when you have users learning on the platform, right? Private schools will want to be on the platform. EdTech companies would be on the platform, right? Businesses will want to come on the platform and want to be part of the ecosystem. That's how you create a platform, a marketplace.
So a lot of people are actually using words like platform.
Yeah.
But the way you kind of explained that to me or unbundled that to me, no one's done that before for me, right?
Yeah.
And that makes me ask this question to you again. So are you saying there are companies, a lot of companies in India today who are in the edtech space? Do you feel they have a very consumer slash software slash app slash, let's say, a very hardware focused strategy, or they feel like at the point of purchase when the user itself is going to purchase, you pay me money, I need to get my money there, versus there's a big difference between that and what I'm hearing you say is a platform approach. Do you want to unbundle that a little bit more?
So I think the fundamental concept of selling a product would be that a product has a certain value, right? And I'm not going to give it out for free unless you pay me the value first. So it is always thought of as a product that you are going to give against certain money, right? And education per se is valuable, right? It's a valuable and tangible asset that you're providing. So it's always been thought from that perspective. It's not been thought from a perspective of social media, right? Like social media, like Instagram, Twitter, etc., where you contribute content, where you're on a digital platform, have access to friends, but you're not charging a subscription fee there, right? So it's all free, right? So then there is network effect that gets generated. But education is not thought from that perspective, right? Where offering free education can potentially lead to monetization value. There are multiple factors associated to it.
But your analogy with social media is so apt, because I understand that for a lot of the early years when Facebook came into existence, there was a lot of talk of how do we monetize it, and people from Facebook were actually saying we're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But people are using it, and as long as people are using it, we'll figure it out. We have time to figure it out. I think that's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant way to look at solving education problems, because if you haven't figured out your business model, it's fine, but it looks like the platform model is helping, while you wait, is actually helping thousands and thousands, if not millions of students.
Yeah.
And I think that is a gift that you're bringing to society.
Yeah, so the analogy I took of social media was that it was providing entertainment value, communication value, getting closer to your friends, talking to your friends without being with each other face to face. But if you were to apply the same analogy of a platform approach to the real deep impact problems of the country, let's say education or women empowerment or healthcare, right? Why not make it free? Everyone's going to come on the platform and you're going to create digital communities, right? So the large impact problems are the large value creators, because you create incremental value for your end user, right? And that's where we saw that there's a huge potential, right?
This is tech for good. This is absolutely tech for good in that sense, because it's actually making lives better. Tell me, at some point you kind of mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that you're not directly charging right now. Are you actually saying that schools, private schools, affordable private schools can use your platform now? Are you saying something like that? How does a school, let's say somewhere in India, a principal listening to this conversation says, "Whoa, okay, I want to jump onto this bandwagon and I want to take this benefit to the students in under their care." Is there a way?
So the approach to look at our monetization model or our model is that Gmail, right? The basic Gmail is free, right? But if you want to be on G Suite, you upgrade, right? So it's a freemium model, right? So we would be having a product for every user, at least a basic free version, right? On which that will democratize. And then there is always funnels of upliftment, right? From your basics, right?
There's the value ladder.
Yes.
That you'll kick in.
Absolutely.
So now one of the things that a lot of school leaders and school owners are thinking about is, what is the right technology or what is the right approach to adding technology into their schools? They don't know how to start. Like, they don't know whom to call. Sometimes they end up calling a computer guy and saying, "Hey, how do we go about doing tech?" Is there a playbook? Is there a set of routines or a set of questions that you think every school principal or school owner or trustee should be asking themselves or thinking about tech? Is there anything like that you can share?
So it's very early stages, right? From our journey, where we have not really approached any private schools, but we are really looking at it from a perspective of that we do not have to go and sell to each individual private schools, but they can self, onboard themselves. It should be as easy as buying a domain for the website, where you just buy your domain, and then set up your website by choosing a WordPress theme, right? Just select a theme. So there is a potential to disrupt the private market only when we get to that level of seamlessness and smooth functionality. So we are working on it, but yes, that would be a game changer, right? When you can self onboard.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of the big jumps in software services companies like Zoho and
Exactly. Yeah.
all these companies, they completely changed the way software was sold.
Yeah.
I remember there were days where people in suits would fly business class, halfway across the country to make presentations, and then after that, a whole team would come in for implementation and training. But today, people are doing it on their own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're able to,
So yeah, that's why we fundamentally want to keep the first basic version free, right? We want to learn from our customers and we want to solve for their pain points, right? And that's how we'll really build a very smooth product which can, where any school leader sitting in any part of the world can potentially just have an internet and onboard themselves, right? Yeah.
but as I sit here listening to you, I just feel there's this calm energy that you have. There's this amazingly matured worldview and perspective about building a tech service or tech platform for such a large market. In my head, I kind of felt like I would probably be seeing somebody who's incredibly restless, trying to get things done, making a ton of mistakes like a bull in a china shop. Is there anything that you'd want to share with other edtech companies or your peers, things that you think that they should not do or things that they should focus on? Is there anything that you can think through?
Yeah, I think couple of things, right? One is customer centricity, right? Like focus on your customer and try and solve the problem. Money will follow. So that's a byproduct. So we learned it earlier that when we just have a focused problem solving approach, then things move, things scale. And then the second is always focus on distribution first and revenue later. So that will allow you to scale tech companies when you think about distribution first as an approach, then charging your customer immediately, right? All large companies have solved the problem of X to 10X, right? So that X to 10X is an important part for tech entrepreneurs to consider, before monetizing immediately. Yeah.
That's actually a very important thing, because otherwise people think, I guess, burn money at the sake of growth, and then we'll figure things out as we get there, and then you probably get a not so great product that probably doesn't fit the needs of the customer.
Yeah. So the PMF may work for your early customers, the product market fit. Then when you go from an X to 10X journey, then the PMF needs some iterations and 10 to 100X more iterations, right? So you'll have to just keep focusing on distribution as you scale. And then there is infinite upside, right, on it.
That's amazing. What do you think education as a industry or space or schools or education per se can take more of from technology at this point in time? Do you think it's there, staring at everyone's face, but they're not taking more of it? Is there anything that comes to mind?
A lot. I mean, right? So today, education has been already thought from an approach of a classroom, which is a set of users who is around you, and you create the definition of a class or a school is structured in such a way. You have to challenge those definitions in the blended world, right? The definitions will break, and the pandemic showed us that schools could operate on live classes, right? On WhatsApp, right? There was a WhatsApp school model where communities were running WhatsApp schools, right? So once the school leader starts challenging this whole thought process that the school is just my 500 students, but I could potentially have a virtual school environment. I could have a school running for 50,000 students, right? Because my curriculum works that way, right? They're challenging the norms, the existing concepts of the schooling and the classroom by focusing on learning outcomes and improvement of learning outcomes is, I think, the way forward for education, with the new education policy especially being announced.
That's amazing. So, what suddenly becomes very eminent here is the entire focus on the curriculum,
Yeah.
the focus on the learning outcome,
Yeah.
and it becomes less about, let's say, the enabling infrastructure in terms of hard assets.
Yes.
And when there is this single-minded proposition that both the company provider, or rather the the entrepreneur or the platform has, as well as the consumer, which is a student, when there's that single-minded proposition in their mind saying that we want to make learning better.
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. So I'll give an analogy from another industry, because I keep, looking at models, right? So let's look at Shopify. What did Shopify do, right? What is it that Shopify really solved for, right? Single focus on the buying and selling experience. The seller who's selling a product should not have any friction, right, in selling them. Everything else should be handled by Shopify as a platform, right? The buyer will get what the seller is selling, right? The transaction was the problem that they solved. Everything else Shopify did, right? So let's take this analogy in education. The school and the teacher, a master teacher is supposed to deliver outcomes. They are the role model, right? They have to get audience. Now, how do you improve their audience? How do you scale that audience? You have to make the technology so scalable and so seamless that your teacher, your master teachers, and your school becomes the hero, right? So the technology has to serve the school and the teacher, and it has to enable them, right? And that's the job of the technology in education. So that unravels a lot of potential for private schools, for coaching centers, for any teacher and an educator who wants to teach to the world. Right?
So what you're saying is technology is like an amplifier.
Yes.
Technology can amplify good teaching as it can also amplify bad teaching, which actually means that we are never taking power away from an educator.
Not
When-
really. Not
yeah,
really. I would
whenever-
like to correct you on that.
Okay.
So the technology has AI, right? And what we do through personalized and adaptive learning is that all of the activities that the educator could not solve because they were a bad teacher, the AI is doing it, right? They are bridging the learning gaps, right? So essentially, when you look at a classroom, not every child is at grade level. Children are at different grade levels. Some children are 3 to 4 grade levels below, right? Now, what technology can do is that AI will help everyone bridge their learning gaps. And if you stand out as a teacher, a good teacher or a master, that will take the teacher's capacity and amplify it up. So technology has the capability to bridge learning gaps through personalized and adaptive learning and solve for real learning problems as well, right? And this, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
And if you are a master teacher and if you're teaching really well, you will shine, right? It's not the automation layer that is helping, right? It's the creative layer that's helping. It's going to be the creative layer of the teachers to amplify the experience. The automation will be taken care of by AI.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing, because so much of what the teachers, presence of mind, experience that the teacher built over time to be able to, that intuitive
Yeah.
teacher skills, or superpower that teachers have, that this kid is learning or not learning, or he knows or he doesn't know, or she knows or she doesn't know. When that kind of gets automated,
Yes.
I think the teachers can focus on the students
Yes.
and can help everyone achieve more.
So the teacher will get a full glance of the classroom and will be able to see this child needs this support because this is the misconception, right? That and you can just solve for the misconception. And then the technology will tell you if you have done a good job with solving for that or you need help, right? So it
That's-
becomes your teacher's aid.
That's brilliant. And imagine what reframing we can do in the minds of a school trustee, because we can suddenly tell us, because schools technically have 60-70% of their operating costs are salary costs
Yes.
that
Yes.
go directly to paying teacher salaries, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if one of the reasons why they feel that the learning outcomes are lower than what they want is because they don't have enough teachers, because teacher to student ratio is always spoken of
Yes.
as this big limiting factor, saying, oh, if only I had more teachers, if only I had more time, if only I had more more opportunities, if only I was not constrained or constricted by the school day or by the, let's say, the government's idea of how many hours English should be taught in a week, then we would have done much better.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying that teachers already know, but there are these commercial constraints that come into play. What if you go to a school principal, or what if you invite a school principal to think that you now suddenly have not 100 teachers but 300 teachers?
Yeah.
It's like my mom
Yeah.
used to tell me every night, saying, pray to your guardian angel. Pray to your guardian angel. Your guardian angel will take care of you. This is what you're saying is almost like that.
Yeah.
At least, if from a very creative visualization
Yeah.
perspective, that's the way.
I believe there will be avatars for every problem, right? There will be an avatars for the school to sell, right? The school can save on sales lead costs, right? You can create school avatars which will go out there and advertise the school in the bot world, right? In the digital universe, you'll have avatar for support, school support, basic IT infrastructure support. These are solved problems in the business world. Does not come to the school, right? Customer support bots are everywhere, right? Sales bots are everywhere. Lead generator bots are everywhere, but it's not come to the school environment, right? And then you'll have bots for teaching assistants. You'll have bots for homework, right? There's a whole bundle of bots that, as you said, you'll have a workforce of 300 now instead of 100.
Yeah. So you now use this word bot for like some 14 times now, or rather 14 and a half, 3 times in your mind. But what would be nice to know from a teacher or a principal perspective or a parent perspective who may probably be listening to this podcast, what is a bot? Where do bots actually come into play? What is Swift Chat? Could you give us a level 1 crash course on what this is and some use cases?
Sure. I mean, imagine, right? You're chatting with a friend on WhatsApp, right? And your friend is your senior who's teaching you math, right? Now, when you ping and say hi, right, you wait for the response from your friend. But if your friend was artificial intelligence or a robot, right, it would have responded immediately, right? It is pre-programmed to help you out always. Now this friend can have different avatars. It could be a friend who gives you homework. It's a friend who can push videos when you need videos for fractions, right? It could be a friend who can help you practice, right? There could be bot for attendance. Teachers who want to mark attendance. The teacher could potentially just tell the bot to mark attendance on behalf of her, right? Mark Aditya absent today, right? So, and it'll go to the LMS and mark Aditya absent, right? So essentially there could be a bot or an artificial intelligence instance for different activities, and that saves in terms of efficiency and costs. Now, what is SwiftChat, right? SwiftChat is essentially a platform which can host bots, right? And it is a place where we welcome a universe of bots and businesses and users, right, together, right, which was helping solve the problem. So that's what our product does. That we're creating bots to help out on your day-to-day activities from a user's perspective, which is a child's perspective, which could be learning, assessment, content creation, solving for homework from a teacher's perspective, looking at reports as we were talking about, looking at your attendance, marking attendance, your regular activities, right? From a parent's perspective, a parent can get a nudge that your child is doing well or not doing well, right? They could be communicated, right? EPTMs can happen through bots, right? So it's a universe where bots are helping every stakeholder, right? So that's what we are trying to build using SwiftChat.
That's amazing because when you say that to me, I start thinking like you're reframing that because a lot of parents, I think, are looking at technology in schools as something that is there to help the teacher or help the school or to help money collection, fee collection, things like that. I don't think a lot of parents have directly seen that there is a direct consequence to learning.
Yeah.
Because I think whenever a school was sold edtech, they were essentially sold an ERP
Yeah.
or a report card generating program
Yes.
or a fee collection program because that's a
Yes.
genuine pain point that a
Yes.
school has.
Yes.
I think when parents start realizing that technology used for improvement in learning, because there's still this idea that learning can only happen from a human teacher, yet parents themselves are probably learning every day from YouTube.
Absolutely. So it's again a subtle approach, right? So it's how we grow, right? Like when you build bots for your basic ERP, LMS use cases, and when parents start seeing their reports when they go down and look at their report cards from the bot, then they see, hey, there is a bot for reading as well, right? So the whole network effect plays in, right? Which is not possible in a restrictive SaaS environment, right? Which is possible on an app store or a bot store, right? So the possibility of creating network effects for users exists through bots, right? To
So this is
start,
a bot store.
SwiftChat is a bot store. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's a platform that
Has bots that can houses bots.
different bots like the way App Store houses different apps.
Yeah,
That's incredibly cool. Incredibly cool. Since you mentioned the name Aditya, I have a friend called Aditya Shah who actually made a statement that India doesn't need more schools. What India needs is just better schools.
right.
And I think, from the conversation that we've had today, it just feels like you are enabling a lot of schools, school teachers, education reformists. You're enabling them to be able to start designing for a better school experience. You're helping them. You're nudging them, right,
Yeah,
to start reimagining
yeah.
education. You're nudging them to reimagine the experience that a child, that a parent, that a teacher or a school leader has.
In the most easy manner possible, right? So I would say that the way technology should operate is to make things as easy as possible, right? Technology is supposed to make themselves redundant, right? Like you don't have to click stuff, right? It should be like you just talk to it, right? Like how you experience your normal world, right? So we are trying to make it simple for scale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about simplicity. If I use the word Alexa right now, I'm sure a lot of Alexa devices would have suddenly gone
Yeah.
jack.
And that's a bot, right?
And that's a bot.
Assisting you
Yeah,
in your real life.
or okay Google, right?
Yes.
And there goes. Probably fired off a lot of other phones now
Yes.
just with that. Such a great conversation I had. I had with you today. I really think that so many school principals, parents, students, teachers should be looking at these technologies. They should really be very open to bringing these services inside their schools so that life can become better and our children can become better, and together I think India can become better in all its endeavors. I think you put it so well that if we really have to benefit from the demographic dividend that India has, then education is the only way, and it is something worth living your entire life trying to solve. So thank you. What are you doing, Jairaj?
Thank you. Thanks. It was a pleasure. Yeah. And all the best.
See you.